Tuesday Lunch with Abe, and in just about, a minute or so, you'll probably want to have a pair of headphones to listen to this next segment. Now, if you're driving, you don't want a pair of headphones, but if you're stationary or just not in a vehicle, even a pair of earbuds would be great, because this next segment's going to really, I think it's going to really impress you. Rodney Jordon and Christian Fabian. Their new album is Conversations. It's on Spice Rack Records. These are two bassists. They have a duo. Now, I think about a year ago I had another record where there was a bass duo, but it's not very common. So let's talk to them and find out more about it. Hello, Rodney. Hello, Christian. This is Abe.
Christian?
This is Christian.
Yeah, hold on. Let me merge. Hold on 1 second.
Okay, so Christian's merging the call with Rodney, and then we're going to talk to the both of them. Is that Rodney?
Yeah, Rodney. Yeah, it's Rodney should be there.
So Christian Fabian, Rodney Jordon. Now, Christian, you're where are you living now? You're in New York, right?
I'm calling from Manhattan right now, yes.
And Rodney, you're in Tallahassee, Florida.
I'm in Tallahassee, Florida. I teach at Florida State University. I've been here for 20 years.
20 years, that's all?
That's it.
Well, you guys have a really interesting album, which I would like to thank so much Jim Igo from Jazz Promo Services for introducing this rather unusual album where you have two upright bassists combining their talents on one recording. And if I understand it correctly, and please correct me if I'm not right, but I understand that all these songs are and improvs are recorded in A at 432 hertz, where said frequencies apparently impart healing effects on listeners' bodies. Is that true?
Yep. Well, I if I may say, Rodney, I'm researching this. The first time I heard about this, I went to a Victor Wooten camp in Nashville, and that was around 2012. And his brother, Reggie, who's a great guitar player, he was researching that for a long time. So that's the very first time that I heard that there are different stories. But some people said around 1900s, some people say around Mozart times. Then recently I heard something that there was a treaty after World War II where all the countries had to agree that they tune their orchestras and tuners to 440 instead of 432. So I don't know which one is absolutely correct, but everyone agrees that the tuning to A has been raised from 432 to 440. And there are frequency pictures where you can see, there are certain sacred geometric figures formed with certain frequencies. You can see that when the tone spectrum is tuned to 432, it's very clear and beautiful, and at 440, it's a little shimmery. Anyway, making a long story short, we both were, when I said it was wrong, both were intrigued, and as it says on the CD, the only way to find out if it makes a difference is just doing it. So we tuned to 432 before the recording.
Well, and then you've got Ron Carter, whose quote on the back says, to the listeners out there, this CD is a great example that two can make great music. And coming from Ron Carter, one of the finest musicians ever, that's what a great support you've got there. And Rodney, you were going to say something.
Well, first of all, getting an endorsement from Ron Carter is a fabulous thing. So we were honored to have that endorsement. I don't know what I was going to say, but I think performing music for people with the mission to heal them, I think is an honorable thing. And I really enjoyed spending the time with Christian. We were on the phone a lot. We were, of course, dealing with the pandemic, of course, so everyone was a bit sequestered, if you will. And we got to talk a lot over the phone about why one might play music and how CD recordings can actually go further than just entertaining people.
Well, let's start off with the title track. This is Rodney, Jordon, and Christian Fabian and Conversations on the Rock. You know, I feel better already. That's Conversations number 4 off the album Conversations, Rodney, Jordon, and Christian Fabian. And if you haven't gotten a pair of headphones or earbuds, I highly recommend that you get them. And at least for this segment, if you can, try to listen in a quiet environment and really pay attention to what's going on, because this recording is just so well done. I'm looking for the credits of who did what. Let's see. Gates Thomas in Brooklyn or was it Konstantin Kamsev at Mozart Studio, Little Falls, New Jersey? Was it those two gentlemen?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was.
Yes.
Yep.
And then Steve Hunt did the mastering at the Kitchen in North Chelmsford, Massachusetts, and is produced by the two of you. And who came up with this idea first? Did you just suddenly say, oh, we've got to do a dueling bass album? I mean, it's just such a rare thing.
Yeah, we were actually, we were in a club in New York, actually, just kind of talking about various things. Christian and I have known each other for a few years now. We have a mutual friend in Jason Marcellus, and for the past 10 years I've been playing in the Marcus Roberts Trio, and Jason Marcellus plays drums in that trio, and Christian would come to a lot of our concerts, and that's kind of how we got to know each other. And we were basically just standing in the performance venue and just talking, and we thought, hey, it'd be great if we just played together, and let's check it out. And we started planning things, and before you knew it, we had an itinerary together. We had a game plan, so I jumped on a plane from Florida to New York, and the rest is history, as they say.
So did you were you both playing the same type of upright bass in terms of the size and the strings and all that, or were they very different from one another?
Well, they were very different from one another in that Christian was playing his personal bass, and I was playing a rented bass.
But no,
which is amazing to get off of a plane and go into a studio with a rented bass. But it was a pretty decent bass that we rented from a local a music company in town, and I made a few adjustments to it, and we had a good time. The bass was fine.
So were you both in the same room when you did the recording, or were you in isolation booths each?
We were both isolated.
Yep.
I was in an isolation room, and Christian was out in the main room. So we were isolated from one another. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I was going to say, how could you possibly isolate the two of you because the bass, the frequencies carry over when you have a mic. I'm assuming you used a combination of pickup mic and a room mic to get that beautiful, warm, ambient room sound. Did you use a combination?
No pickup.
No pickup?
No.
Wow.
No pickup, yeah. We both use the same set of mics. There is on my YouTube channel, there's a video. You can see all the pictures taken in the recording studio with the same title track. I think we used Conversations for that one as well. And you can look we used the same microphones, so different instruments. And, as Rodney said, his one was rented. And, so that's how we did it. And isolated because we needed the separation for getting a really good mix. And believe it or not, when I first, when we first showed the CD to Ron Carter, at the very end, after he was done talking about the CD, he said, "Let me ask you one question. How did you get this great sound?" And I said, "Well, and I didn't even choose the microphones. Konstantin, who you just mentioned, who owns Mozart Recording Studio, he just set up the mics, so I couldn't even tell him what mics we used. I just know that they were very expensive and that we had two of them each, one at the lower part of the bass and then one a little further up.
Oh, now that makes a big difference. You didn't mention that before. I didn't realize you had two on each bass. So that's why there's so much frequency detail that you hear in the recording. Because normally, I don't know, it's not necessarily...
That is a common. I mean, when I record the bass and you are in an isolation booth, I don't know what your experience is, Rodney, but my experience is that they always put up two mics because some of them, they want to get the fingerboard sound, the fingers hitting the strings and the fingerboard.
Yeah.
So they always put up two mics. I never seen, unless it's not a good, a cheaper studio where, it's still a good studio, but where the guy doesn't have that much money to buy all those expensive microphones. But for the most part, I always sometimes they use actually three, believe it or not. I've seen that too.
Yeah, I've used three before. I've had a guy in the studio who wanted to record the back of the bass.
Wow.
And he had me in a small room. He wanted to see
Wow.
what was happening back there. And we actually got a beautiful sound. So.
Was that you wanted to get the back for percussive elements? Like, were you hitting the back or what?
I don't know. I think he just wanted to, because there is sound that's resonating back there,
right.
you know, through the pores of the wood. He just wanted to get it all, you know, surround the entire bass. So he had 3 microphones on me, the 2 in front and 1 in back. One in the front, the 2 in the front, one was down low and one was up high, as Christian stated, so you could get the fingers and that kind of thing.
Well, if you're just joining us, so this is Tuesday Lunch with Abe at 97.3 and 107.9 The Rock. Rodney, Jordon from Tallahassee, Florida, and Christian Fabian from New York. They have a new album called Conversations on Spice Rack Records. And if you're interested in getting the physical record, you can go to rodneyjordanmusic.com. And it's got a lot of information that I think you'd enjoy and some very nice graphic design courtesy of, and photography courtesy of Christopher Drucker. And so I have a question for Rodney. Rodney, you're a longtime educator. Are you teaching jazz, perhaps?
I am teaching jazz at Florida State University. I teach combos. I teach jazz styles and analysis, which is a class that I absolutely enjoy. And I work with students on a lot of different things. And so right now we're in the process of putting a big band together to go down to Sarasota, Florida, and around the Tampa area. We're going to do a little tour with our big band and our faculty ensemble.
How big is the big band? A 20-piece?
Yeah, 20-piece big band. Yeah.
Is it actually 20 pieces?
Roughly, yeah.
Oh, okay. That was just a guess on my part.
It's a big group. Yeah.
Yeah. And so everybody has to stay in one room to save money, right?
No, they do not. We do two to a room. Two to a room.
Oh, that's not so bad.
Yeah.
Well,
we do everything first class at Florida State.
Let's move on to another tune. This is the first one I played, Conversations number 4, was a co-write between Christian and Rodney. This is a Christian Fabian tune. It's called "The Kind Giant," and you're listening to KBF, Morro Bay, KZSR, Paso Robles. There you go. Two exceptional bassists playing on a Christian Fabian tune, The Kind Giant. This appears on the Rodney Jordon Christian Fabian album, Conversations on Spice Rack Records. And I just love the sound of that. It's so warm, and yet I can hear all the percussive elements of the string, the fretboard, and all that stuff. And on the cover of this record, it's funny, it shows you there's one bass, and the two of you are playing one bass, but I know you didn't actually do that on the recording because there's two separate basses. You can hear the two separate basses. But Christian, I had a couple of questions for you. What do you do beyond this record? I don't know much about your background. I was hoping you could fill us in.
Well, sure. I mean, I'm playing with the Lionel Hampton Big Band for the last 28 years, and I think that's probably the most high-profile gig I've been doing. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I've been doing, and we recently got in 2021, we got a Grammy. Lionel Hampton never received a Grammy, so the Grammy Association gave him a Lifetime Achievement Award, and they included the band. The Grammy was really for Lionel, but they called the Lionel Hampton Big Band one of the longest-running orchestras in jazz history, which is really great for the big band, and we officially had the green light to restart the big band and go out and play in 2015 from the Lionel Hampton estate. So that's, where a lot of my focus is in terms of the big band. But then I'm freelancing. I do, before the pandemic, I would do workshop tours, a little different than being in one place. And I would go to the Pacific Northwest. I'm connected to several jazz programs there, which I have all got to know through the Lionel Hampton Jazz Festival, which is in Moscow, Idaho. And we just returned with a big band at the end of February, 10 days ago. We actually played at Lionel Hampton. So over those 28 years, a lot of the teachers who teach jazz I have become friends with, and there are some high-profile jazz programs, and I would go out there 2 or 3 times a year. And just in 2019, I think that was one of my busiest trips. I had like 10 schools in 10 days, including, the state of Washington, and then Idaho and British Columbia. So I was doing a lot of that, just going into the classroom, listening to the big bands and doing like workshops with the students, including some private lessons, not only with the bass players, but some improv with other students who play other instruments. And other than that, I live in New York here in this area, and I'm freelancing. And I'm doing a lot of creative projects. I mean, I have different formations, a trio, bigger bands, like a fusion project with a drummer in Los Angeles for over 10 years, where we do like some jazz rock fusion type of music. So fairly freelancing, but in a nutshell, that's what I've been doing.
Well, can you please remind us the band that you play with Jason Marsalis in New York?
Yeah, Jason is he is the vibraphone player of the Lionel Hampton Big Band. So the Lionel Hampton, so Lionel Hampton Estate chose Jason Marsalis in 2008 to be the official follow-up vibraphone player. Lionel Hampton died in 2002, so Jason Marsalis was chosen by the Lionel Hampton Estate to fill the very big shoes of Mr. Lionel Hampton.
Wow. And
it was the perfect choice for the band because Jason is also a very accomplished drummer, and what really works well for the band is the Lionel Hampton's first instrument was the drums, and at one point he was called the world's fastest drummer, and then he picked up through Louis Armstrong, he picked up the vibraphone. And Jason grew up as a drummer, and then on the recommendation of his father, Ellis Marsalis, in his late teens, I think, according to his story, he recommended, why don't you pick up the vibraphone? And he basically, compared to a lot of other vibraphone players, he kind of started late, but he learned so fast. It's unbelievable. And so when we restarted the big band officially, it's called the Lionel Hampton Big Band featuring Jason Marsalis.
Well, I always was a big fan, to this day, huge fan of Lionel Hampton, and I never got to see him, but there's so much great film on him playing at various festivals and, of course, all the recordings, and I just love watching him. He always had a big smile on his face when he was playing the vibes or the drums, for that matter. We are talking to Rodney Jordon and Christian Fabian. Both play upright bass. Both appear on this duo album called Conversations on Spice Rack Records. It's 97.3 and 107.9 The Rock. It's Tuesday lunch with Abe till 6 o'clock. And if you didn't know this already, we are KEBF Morro Bay, KZSR Paso Robles. We're your listener-supported community radio for the California Central Coast and beyond. And if you are so inclined, please consider making a tax-deductible donation. We exist solely on your donations because we have lots of expenses. Even though all of us are volunteers and we do it for the music, there are streaming service costs, there are licensing music costs, there is electricity, there is the equipment upkeep. CentralCoastRadio.org is the place you can make a donation, and you can get some great swag in the process. There's CDs, there's T-shirts, there's stickers, all sorts of cool things there. Rodney Jordon and Christian Fabian are my guests. Now, I'm not familiar, Rodney, with H.V. Bingen. He is the composer of Desperatu No. 2 and Desperatu No. 10, both of which I'm planning to play here. Can you tell us a little bit about him? Because I've never heard of the gentleman.
It's actually a female. Actually, I'm going to let my friend tell you a little bit more about him because he actually brought her to my attention.
Oh, okay. All right, Christian.
And I wasn't as familiar with.
Yeah, it's actually Hildegard von Bingen. She was a German abbess who lived around over 1,000 years ago, and she was singing tone rows, and she was singing. She was into different things. Obviously, she was an abbess, so she prayed a lot to God, and also she was into natural remedies and music. So she was singing tone rows to sick people to heal them. And so I mentioned it to Rodney because that ties in with the entire 432 aspect. And also Rodney told me that he did healing music before with a violin player. They did music to heal people and meditative music. So it's kind of, when I mentioned it to him, she has a movie out. And, well, not her personally, but it's called Visions. It's a great movie, and it talks about her life, and it's a really great description of what she did with those tone rows. So
what are tone rows?
Well, before we had music, like the three elements of music is melody, harmony, and rhythm. When music first started, it was not really written down 1,000 years ago. So they had, they were just about to figure out in the monasteries or wherever, how to document music. So, and the music staff didn't have 5 lines; they had like 3 lines. So they were just putting these dots on these lines, and when you hold a note longer, the note was bigger, and when you had to sing it faster, they would just make it smaller. That's just in a nutshell. So they would just sing tone rows. I mean, they were just discovering music, I guess, in a way, or documenting music. And in the monasteries, it's mostly choirs, but they call it monophonic music. That means not harmony, but only one note at a time. And so the term I picked up on is just called tone rows. So it's like notes in a row, basically.
Desperitu, Hildegard van Bingen. Is that right?
Yep.
And that was the composer, and Rodney Jordon on the bass, Christian Fabian on the bass. Both of you are bowing in this case, and beautiful sound. I had an idea when I first got this record. I was thinking, wow, this is really interesting with two upright basses, but perhaps it would be interesting to do another album where you're combining the upright bass or other bass-like instruments together. So, for instance, like a bass ukulele, which is not played like an upright bass, so it might be difficult since you're both used to playing upright bass. But I recently heard a show where bass ukulele was the main instrument to the vocalist singing, and I was so impressed because it didn't sound like a ukulele. It sounded like a sort of a bass guitar in a way, and it was tiny. It was a tiny little instrument. But I was just thinking, wouldn't it be cool if you played an upright bass and perhaps an electric bass or some other kind of bass-like instrument? Have you thought about that for doing another record?
I have not, but I've seen a lot of this sort of thing on YouTube, and it works great. Acoustic bass and electric bass together. It works great because of the obvious timbre differences between the acoustic sounding bass and then the electric bass coming through the amplifier, of course.
Especially if the electric bass is an 8-string bass. Yeah. Well, Rodney, I wanted to ask you about. I wanted to ask you about 432, which is the next tune I want to play. We've got time for just about one more, and this figures heavily into this recording. And explain again the 432, this is a 432 hertz, which is the A at 432 hertz. This is the tuning of A, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
And when you tune it at 440, you get this sound. I happen to have my bass with me right now. Can you hear that?
Yeah, I do hear that.
And that's the low version of it, But then we decided to turn it down just a little bit. So you get something that sounds like this, and it goes down, and you hear that. You hear the difference there?
Oh, I do hear the difference. Yeah.
So here's A, and here's B.
Oh, yeah.
It's very subtle, but it's there. Yeah.
Well, so you're...
And it was an interesting thing because our instruments aren't used to being tuned quite that low. So we checked the tuning quite a bit in the studio just to be absolutely sure everything is where it should be. Between takes, of course. Yeah.
Well, the thing that's really nice about this when you're listening on headphones, it's very meditative. I've listened to it while I'm. It's great for an accompaniment to doing things like editing photography. It just helps you get along with tasks, and it's not just background music. It just keeps you engaged. I don't know what it is about the music, but it really works well. And I wish you both very well. Christian, Fabian, Rodney Jordon. Their new album is Conversations. It's on Spice Rack Records. If you want to get a physical copy, RodneyJordanmusic.com. And I'm assuming you guys are on all the streaming services as well, right?
Yes,
we are.
Yes,
we are.
Well, if you ever come to the California Central Coast, would love to see a dueling bass concert. That would be fascinating. Do you have plans for doing live shows when things open up a little bit more?
Absolutely, yes.
We certainly hope to at some point, yes.
Well, thank you both, and thanks to Jim Igo of Jazz Promo Services for introducing this fine record. Gentlemen, have a great rest of your day, and I look forward to hearing what you're doing in the future.
Thank you for getting us together.
We really enjoyed spending this time with you.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Yeah.